Hi everybody, it's Annette from The Art of Intuition, and today we are going to talk about endings and how we stick the landing is really important to how we anchor in the next reality, and how they're different between human reality closeouts and higher reality closeouts, and the different processes we look at when we're closing out a reality from our higher consciousness states and when we close them out from our human states. So if you hear a cat yelling in the background, apologies for that. She's not super happy about endings in general, so she's been very fussy as we kind of move through this. So when we were in our human realities, we would normally not close out a reality until we saw the next one, right? We would see, the old song, what's it? It's ready on deck. It's ready on deck. You have the new job, you have the new space, you have the new girlfriend, the new boyfriend, the new husband, the new wife. It didn't really matter. We just had the next thing set up. Very rarely, unless we were pushed out of something in a sense, but in a way that was still pushing us toward the next thing, so it was supposed to happen that way, would we not know what was next. And we've all been in certain parts of our life in our human consciousness when that happened. And normally that happens because we would not have left on our own, because we had gotten very comfortable in the reality and it was time to go do something else. So, but in general, we don't go until we see the next thing. We've kind of been conditioned to do that by everything in human consciousness told us to do that. You don't quit a job till you have a job. You don't do this till you have that. But what that also does is it keeps us in the loop of the energy of the old thing, because we don't have the insight at the time to understand energetically what we're doing and how we keep recreating the whole thing, because we're not letting anything reset. We're just going for the next shiny thing, whatever that is. If we see it on the horizon and it's shiny, we want that one, right? That's the next thing. That's what I want to go do. That's going to be the thing that's going to, make everything better, or whatever our story is around it. When we start anchoring in higher consciousness dimensions, we start anchoring in higher consciousness realities, we start seeing things differently. We start seeing the energy of everything. And even if we don't know that's what we're doing, when we start doing it, that's what we're doing. We're starting to understand how we created that. Every place we're at had a purpose. Every people that were in our life, they all served a purpose. When that purpose is complete, we're complete in that reality in a sense. Now we can try to hold on to it, but it will get very uncomfortable very fast when we try to hold on to it, because our human's the one holding on to it. Our human wants us to stay in it. I know for me, I'm closing out a reality, I'm moving, and I'm not sure, what the next place I'm going to yet, but I knew it was time to close this out. The reality was getting very hard to kind of keep going in a sense. It wasn't a lot of the energy that supported it before had been pulled out of it. It was time for me to go to the next thing, whatever that was going to be for me. Every process I needed to complete here was finished, and this space wasn't going to support me in the next phases of what I had to go do. So I had to go. So you start to see how things start lining up when we start doing that, right? But normally people would say, well, get the next thing first, or know what the next thing is. Well, we can't do that here in a sense. We can't do that here because we have to settle all the old stuff. So what's going to happen is everything attached to the frequency of this place, which is now an older frequency for me, has to clear before I can then kind of plug in. I have to kind of unplug from this frequency and plug up to the new one. There'll be a time when you're in this kind of closeout, plugging up to the new one in a sense, or where you can't really see the new one. You just might have a lot of stuff coming up. We have to energetically clear it, right? And that's why you kind of build time in. I was going to leave, give myself a lot more time, linear time in a sense. And then the landlord came back and said, hey, can you move a lot faster? Because we have someone who wants to come in right away. Can you move quicker? And I was like, yeah, so I saw a date, I picked the date, not understanding at the time why it had to be that date. Now knowing it's because you have the eclipse coming, right? You have the eclipse energy coming, and that helps things, kind of gives you that energy to kind of push things out. And I needed the time to kind of energetically be finished. I had to clear all that stuff in me that was keeping the new from coming through, all that old frequency stuff, all the tears that have to come up. In a way, we're grieving this reality. We're grieving any reality that we've ever been a part of, whether in this consciousness, in this dimension in all of our concurring multidimensional selves that are attuned to this frequency. The frequency I'm trying to clear. That's why it can feel so intense. You can have so much stuff coming up. And a lot of people will, and I'll do the same sometimes, be like, oh, well, I did this before. I was like, I did part of it before, but I wasn't finished yet. I still had more to work through. I had more to come up before I could see the next thing, before I could get to the next thing. So, and that can be a process, you know, it's not overnight. It could take weeks or months, depending on how much you want to kind of throw yourself into it. And in a way, you're kind of always doing it, but when you get to that final push, then you know, like, okay, everything has to clear now. Like because your frequency's raised to a point where this is so distorted it can't stay anymore. So you kind of feel like you get hit with a lot of stuff at one time. You get hit with things everywhere. Everything starts breaking. You know, the money will go from one reality. It starts getting funneled into the next reality yet, but you're not plugged into that reality yet. So you feel like you're kind of getting squeezed on every end, and you're not really sure, you know, because you can't see the next thing yet. You're not sure which way you're supposed to go. Now there's a reason for that, but you're not sure. You don't know it. You haven't seen it yet. You might see different options, but none of those options might feel correct, you know? It's like, no, that doesn't feel right. That one doesn't feel aligned. That one doesn't feel aligned. But you have to get through the clearing before you can see the next thing. That's what's in the way of you being able to go into the next reality. That's why it's so important that in a way you don't know where you're going. And there's a part of this process where we see things kind of unfold very quickly for us because it gives us that kind of motivation to keep going, to trusting in the process in a sense. But then there's another part of the process where we've seen stuff come when we needed it, where we kind of get pushed at that last minute and to see if we'll cave, if we'll maybe go with something that we know is not aligned. Are you going to cave? Are you going to go with something that's not aligned? Or are you going to wait and see what happens next? Are you going to kind of keep trudging through? Because we have to learn that in that moment you're going to have it. You know, in that moment it's going to be there. You know, in that moment you're going to have exactly what you need. It might not be as much as your human it might not go the way your human wants it to go, but you'll have the next space. You'll have the next job. You'll have the next thing. But sometimes it comes at the very last minute because that's when you hit the frequency. But there is that grieving part that our human doesn't want to go through. You know, our human just kind of wants to go to the next thing. It doesn't want to take the time to energetically clear out everything that might look like it has nothing to do with the old consciousness, the old frequency, but it does. It's all plugged in together. And we have to kind of start untangling it. And it can be an immense process. It can be very tiring. I know this week there are certain things I know I have to do, like any linear stuff, you know, when you're moving, you know, you have to do certain things. You kind of put those things over here. And I'm like, okay, I can't do those things yet. I don't have the energy, whether it be the time, the money to do any of this stuff. We're just going to put this over here for now. You know, we'll get back to this. And now I'm going to concentrate on what I can do. And it's been more that energetic closeout, you know, kind of getting everything kind of, you know, worked out energetically. What do I have to do now? Okay, let me get this straight. Okay, now let me get this straight. Let me just clear all the stuff. Let me start figuring out where everything's going to go. What am I going to keep? What am I going to take with me? Usually you'll know in advance, like, oh, wait, I'm not supposed to take anything. Like all this stuff is old. I'll just take, you know, very basic kind of stuff. All the rest of this stuff is somehow plugged into the old frequency and it's all got to go. And you also kind of know you're not going to need it. You're going to go someplace where all this stuff is going to be provided. You're not going to need all this stuff. Or you'll go to a place where you will be, once you get there, you'll know, okay, I'm just going to buy different stuff, you know, or I'm going to need different stuff here. I can't keep the old stuff going anymore. It's all tied to that old frequency. So when you're in these places and you say, oh, I don't want to go because I can't see the thing yet. Knowing that if you kind of can see the thing, it's usually still attached to the old thing, because what's in your way of the really new thing, you know, not just a thing that looks new, not just a thing that it's kind of painted up to look like, you know, a Prince Charming and it's just a dude in boy shorts when you flip the mirror over, you know, it's the same old thing, is that we have all that stuff in the way. You know, all the old frequency stuff we don't want to let go of, all the feelings we don't want to feel, and whether they feel like they've got nothing to do with what's going on. All of that stuff is what we don't want to feel. We don't want to face that stuff. And that's the stuff we have to face, because that's what's going to keep us kind of in the old stuff, right? By the time you see the new, because we're bringing them on, inside of us. We've worked a lot inside first before the outside can kind of can show itself, in a sense, can reveal itself. But we have to work a lot on the inside stuff to get rid of everything that's in that old frequency. And until we do that, we're going to continue to kind of be faced with the stuff that kind of all looks the same. Like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, that, oh yeah, that, okay, whatever. It all kind of is the same. And it can be exhausting. So you might find yourself sleeping more. I know I've slept a lot this week. And you kind of will build this stuff into your process, and you'll start to learn to build it into your process. Okay, I'm going to need a week to just energetically clear the old and hook up to the new. Then I'm going to actually need a week to actually do the stuff that people would have been doing before. In our human consciousness, we want to start doing all the physical stuff. Let me pack, let me do all this. I'm like, I can't even do any of that yet. I've got to energetically clear everything out. I've got to kind of have that blank slate, in a sense. Get rid of all the old frequency stuff, because what I want to come in is the most aligned thing, the highest aligned thing in that new frequency. I don't want to bring in something that is not the right frequency. It's very important that, and we get very picky about what comes in and what we're going to choose, and if that is going to fit. And it might come right at the 11th hour. Normally, different parts of the process, it does come at the 11th hour. That's when we actually complete what we need to complete to see it. And we have to know that, hey, it's going to come right at the last minute. Like, I know mine's going to come right at the last minute. So don't worry about it yet. Just continue to do what you can do for that day. And if you don't have the time to do the other thing, you don't have the money to do the other thing you feel like you need to do, know that it's just not time to do that yet. You will have what you need when you need to do it. A lot of realities we close out, we feel like, oh, well, I closed that reality out and I had a lot more money. In this reality I'm closing out, I don't have as much money. And there's a reason for that. We look at it kind of linear, like we expect everything to kind of always upgrade. But in these realities, you're going to have what you need, because money is different here in a sense. You have what you need to get to the next stage you need to get to, right? And you might have needed more before to bridge that gap. You might have needed $60,000 to bridge your next reality 4 years ago, because that's how long it was going to take you to get to that new frequency and to anchor in the new things that were going to support you in your next phase. In the frequency you're in now, you might only need $2,000 or $3,000, and that's all you're going to require until you can hook up to the new frequency and have the new support coming in, whatever that's going to be. So it's not going to be this building, like, oh, I made this much now and now I make this much now. It's different. You can also look at it like you can only kind of utilize the money that's supporting higher consciousness realities, and a lot of the collectives don't support that. So you have more money in kind of what people call old earth and new earth, in a sense. Now that's changing every day as more and more people come online to new earth and start supporting people, doing stuff like this, and start supporting their journey. And by supporting their journey, they're supporting other people. So you see more and more people and more money starting to funnel in. But when you have, let's say you have so much in the bank account, in a sense, and maybe someone else doing higher consciousness, they need 60,000 this year because they got a much bigger thing they got to go do, but you don't really need that this year. You only need this much money, and that's what you're going to have. But the next year you might need 5 times that, and they might not need that much. So that's kind of how it goes. So don't get hung up on what you used to have. You're going to have exactly what you need to get to the next thing. I'll promise you that. You're going to have what you need to get to the next thing. It's going to come. You just have to make sure we clear everything to do with the old. And it might feel very, very intense, and stuff that you wouldn't even think is related to it. I know I just lost a power charger that I have no idea what happened to it. And I was like, kind of pissed. I was like, how does this have to do with anything right now? This is what's going to happen right now. I'm going to lose my power charger to one of my computers, but apparently that's what's going to happen right now. So I'm going to actually go see if I can track that down. So anyway, keep looking, keep clearing. Maybe not keep looking is what I wanted to say there, but know that it'll be there. And do what you feel aligned to do. If you feel aligned, let me just sleep and try to clear. Let me try to plug into the new, because you cannot plug into the new reality until you unplug from the old. And there's a lot of stuff that goes into unplugging from the old that we didn't realize before. So we have to put that work in. It's critical. We have to stick the landing. If we don't stick the landing, we're not going to end up where we want to. Okay? Okay. Keep practicing the art of intuition.